Mr. Kip Sorensen, good to see you, man. It seems like we're doing this every 2 weeks anymore. Just with my schedule, it's been crazy.
Yeah. Well, when you're important and people want to talk to you, I understand. Actually, I don't understand, but I can, I see that it's happening to you.
It's a weird, it's like, I understand from the sideline.
Yeah.
No, it's a weird dichotomy. Actually, there was a time when I was like, oh, I wish I was busy and I had all this stuff going on. I was meeting with, and now I'm kind of doing that. And now I'm like, oh man, I wish things were slower and it was a little bit more slow paced and I was able to take some time. And so it's like always better wherever you're not, it seems like, but I am grateful. I don't want to be ungrateful for the opportunities that have been afforded to us.
Yeah. But I think it goes to, we talked about this in the IC, right? We got to be careful not to, at least I need to remind myself not to be careful with associating busy as good. Right.
For sure. Yeah.
And to realize like, cause I'll even say that, how's things going? Too busy. It's too busy. Right. Like I need margin. I need to, not be as busy and focus on productivity. But anyhow, dude, the lineup that you've had over the last couple weeks
crazy, right?
Just awesome. And
I love Adam Carolla just came out yesterday as of the release of this one. And then Brian Callen's next week. We had Dave Ramsey 2 weeks ago, I think. It's wild.
And I love the fact that Dave is like, come to my place. We'll record in our studio. I'm like,
yeah,
hell yeah. That's pretty awesome, actually.
Well, and it's nice too, because if in the past, as I traveled, if I wanted to record with somebody, I would bring all of my podcasting equipment with me.
Yeah.
And now, so I went to Dave's studio. He had it all way better equipment than I had. Then I went out and visited Adam Carolla. He's like, nah, just use my studio. So we used his studio, way better equipment than I had. Brian Callen's like, no, I got a studio. Just come over. Like, we'll record at my studio. Way better equipment than I had. So they had better equipment. I had to carry less stuff around. It was a win-win across the board.
And they have all that fancy equipment. So the camera angles, when you guys are talking, it's just solid, Yeah. So,
it's cool. Nice, man. Things are going really good. Almost finished up with the book. That'll be finished up this week. The first manuscript anyways, and it's got to go through a bunch of iterations and all that kind of stuff. And we have time, we've got 8 months before it comes out. So I'm amazed at the timeline. I didn't know how long that timeline is when you're working with a publisher. That was all new to me.
Okay. What do you mean how long the timeline is? Like how long they give you for revisions on the manuscript?
Yeah. When I wrote Sovereignty, I wrote it in like 60 or 90 days, somewhere right in there, because it was on my battle plan to write the book and then to have it published in 90 days. And I did that.
Yeah.
And now, I signed that contract with that publisher in October, November, somewhere in there. So from the time I signed with our publisher, it'll almost be 12 months before the release of the book.
What did you have to do to get the publisher to decide to be your publisher? Like, did you have to present an outline and the concept of the book?
Yeah.
Hey, this is what the book's going to about. Here's the general outline. And then they're like, yeah, you know what? We can get behind that and help you sell that and publish it. And then they agreed at that point.
And I had a literary agent. So this was new to me as well. So a literary agent is basically what you'd think. It's an agent. They work on your behalf. So my literary agent, I was introduced to him, or I think he actually reached out to me, if I remember right. And they've represented some incredible people. Cam Haynes, Tim Tebow. They've represented some powerful people.
Legit. Yeah. Not just some.
And then they represented me. I'm like, what? Like, why? Why'd you represent all these awesome people? Why you represent me? Anyways, so what they do is then they go out to all the publishers that they have relationships with
and pitch
and broker it and try to get the best deal and the best publisher for the best distribution model and get me paid the best so they can get paid too, because they earn a percentage. So it was a pretty good deal. I was impressed with how it went. I didn't really know. It's all kind of new, but it was pretty interesting.
That's cool. I would just say my agent. That just sounds cooler. You should go with that.
What did I say?
Your literary agent. So just say my agent, you know,
Oh,
because
my
that
agent.
way, you know, my agent. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's my agent. It does sound,
Like, put that on your
it
email
sounds
signature.
way more
Put that,
important.
yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
sounds awesome. Put on your email signature, like, and my agent, you know, and put
Yeah.
his contact info.
It sounds way more important than it actually is. And at this point anymore, yeah, I'm going to put out a great book. I mean, the material we're putting out there is good. It's good information. Hopefully it's written well. Hopefully I share some anecdote and stories and am able to back up, some
people
of my
can
claims.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also it's, let's be honest, we have a pretty large following at this point.
That's built in. Yeah.
And so both my agent and the publisher are like, oh, well, he's got a built-in audience that he's going to be able to sell the book to. Like,
why does he need us, really?
No, I mean, they're going to present a lot of opportunities. There'll be a book tour. We'll do some mainstream media stuff that I haven't had access to in the past. So there are definitely things they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, but it's a win-win for them too, right?
100%.
With an existing following that you already have. Yeah.
Because it's less of a risk for them because they know, like, okay, whatever this guy is sharing, people resonate with. And so that gives them a sense of some level of confidence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm nervous, man. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited, but nervous about it.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be good.
I'm sure it'll be great.
Well, guys, let's get into some questions today.
Yeah, soun's good. And this is actually, you
guys didn't talk about Hamilton last week, did you? I haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast. So
I'll say this. We did have someone says, hey, one of the questions was, I want to hear you guys talk more about Hamilton, but I think that guy was just trying to piss you off. So I ignored his question. I'm like, you know what? We're not here to piss off Ryan. Okay. So, it's
probably a good idea.
Yeah. I don't want to get on your bad side. So
yeah, well, I don't.
Yeah.
Nah.
All right. So we have a handful of questions from Facebook as well as from the Foundry. First question. So, to join us on Facebook, go to facebook.com/group/orderman. If you guys have, or if you're not already there. So Bobby has this question. He says, you have had so many great men on the podcast. Is there anyone that stood out to you and where you got done and felt like you just learned so much? I don't want the answer of all of them. You got to have one that moved the needle for you. So you're gonna ask me a question, then tell me what I can and can't say about it. Yeah. Right. Or throw all, like, the majority of your guests under the bus and just focus on one or two of them. And then he says, Kip. Oh, good.
No, you're good. Go.
Well, and the quasi second question, Kip, what does your future hold for you? You guys have laid a great foundation for us to grow. What are you going to grow on this next quarter and year? So I think we make that question for both of us. So cool. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So a podcast interview that moved the needle.
Yeah. Move the needle or stood out. Those are
think,
different.
Like, really caused you to learn. Like,
for me,
whoa, I personally learned a lot from that.
This podcast isn't released yet, so I'm really anxious to get this to you. Yeah. That Brian Callen conversation blew my mind.
Really? That
guy is genius. And he's hilarious. Most guys know who Brian Callen is. He's funny. We know him as the funny guy, like, he's hyper intelligent. And so he blew my mind on some of the stuff he knew and the angles he was taking. And that was really enlightening to me. The Dave Ramsey one was good for me because as a former financial advisor, I had my preconceived notions going in there about some things that I think he gets right and some things that, I'm not totally on board with. But I was able to ask him some of those questions and get to the root of it. The business thing is a big thing with Dave Ramsey. I'm like, look, you're a hyper successful business owner, but you don't really teach people that. Like, you're teaching them personal finance, but you built your wealth through, and so have I personally.
Yeah, but yet you're not promoting entrepreneurship and this whole other angle. Yeah.
And so I asked him about that. And he said, yeah, oh, for sure. He's like, that's going to get you to the next level. Real estate, business, that's going to get you to the next level. He's trying to help people who aren't there yet. And so he was he's pretty clear about who his target audience is. And I think I may have talked with him about this on the podcast. One of the problems with social media is that when you get out that little device and you start scrolling through my profile or Dave Ramsey or Brian Callen or Jocko or whoever, you think they're talking to you specifically. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they build it that way, and you get to curate it. You're like, okay, here's my feed, interested
Not
in this,
applicable.
thumbs up this, like I'm not interested in that. And so it begins to be customized and catered to you specifically. So you're lulled into thinking that everything you see is supposed to be directly targeted to you. And so occasionally I'll have somebody who will reach out and say, well, Ryan, you know, I usually agree with 95% of what you say, but I can't believe in my situation, here's what I do. And you're saying to do this. I can't believe you tell me that. It's like, well, you know, there's also 500,000 people that aren't you that follow me. And maybe 95% of what I share is for you. And you have to determine that. And the other 5% is for somebody who isn't you, the other 499,099 people.
Yep.
So Dave Ramsey was good from that perspective, because he was like, oh yeah, no, I know. He said that. He's like, I know business is the way to build wealth. Yeah, that's how he's built his wealth. That's how I built mine. But that's not who he's talking to. But he doesn't really ever share that. So people begin to think, well, this is what he believes. You can't get rich on beans and rice. Yeah, that's right. He's actually not saying you can. He's helping those people who need to get that first stage covered.
Yeah, that's his focus. Yeah,
right.
Which just reiterates the importance of context, right? Whether it's reading scripture or even messages like these guys, like, what's the context? Oh, yeah. Who's the audience? Who is he talking to? Oh, yeah. You know what? That message is applicable to 80%. Good call, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was good. Cool. And you know, the other one that really stands out to me is John Eldredge. I mean, his book was literally life-changing for me. It's life-altering for me.
Yeah. So there's
and
a
I
little
don't use
bit
that.
of
Yeah. I don't use that lightly either. I'm not one of these guys who's going to, you know, try to inject all this hyperbole into my convert. Like, oh, it's a life-changing podcast, must listen. That one, actually, that book, life-changing. So to be able to have a conversation with him. And what I like about John is his unapologetic approach to masculinity. And it's a lot of his is Christian based, but it's very unapologetic. And we need more people like that in society. Adam was like that too. Brian Callen was like that too. We need more people who are unapologetic about sharing their viewpoint, because everybody else is walking around on eggshells, tiptoeing, trying not to hurt people's feelings. And then what ends up happening is those individuals won't actually say what A, they believe, and B, what needs to be said, because they're worried about how somebody else may perceive it or what the reaction. The way people react to what I say is not my responsibility. That's their responsibility. But I'll be damned if I don't share what's on my mind and share my perspective. We need to be doing more of that.
And the reason why you call that out is because you feel that they're not congruent with how they're feeling, that some individuals were skirt around what they believe is true in an attempt not to offend people.
Yes.
Is that kind of okay?
And there's some real problems with that. Number one, you're lying. You're living a lie to yourself. You're out of integrity. So that's an issue.
Totally.
Number two, somebody actually may need to hear something that you're going to say, and nobody will tell. I call it the American Idol syndrome. Like, some of these people get up and they start singing, or X Factor, whatever the thing is, X Factor, America's Got Talent, or whatever the thing is now. They get up there and they actually think they're talented because nobody told them the truth. Like, nobody said, you're not good at this. They all said, oh, it's good. You know, you're good. You're amazing. You should. It's like, no, you're not. You're not good at this. And it's delusional.
Yeah.
That's on the lighter side. But then there's other sides, like transgenderism, for example. You know, there's a great thing with Matt Walsh going on right now, who's agreed to come on the podcast, by the way. He went and visited Dr. Phil. A lot of people have seen that because it's gone viral. And there was a couple people who are transgender and Matt Walsh. And Matt Walsh is also somebody who's very unapologetic.
Yeah.
He tiptoes on the line of a-hole, you know, but which is hilarious because we need it. And it's like these people, these transgender people, had like never had anybody say anything to their face ever that doesn't affirm what they're doing. Like, what a travesty that everybody's afraid to speak the truth. And then here's the third problem. So the first problem is you're lying to yourself. Second problem is you're lying to other people. Third problem is this has ripple effects through culture and society. And now we base some very real decisions off of faulty data and information. That could be
because people latch
decisions.
onto that and go, oh yeah, I should see it the same way that he sees it. So now I'm going to tiptoe, or, I think that is truth or whatever.
Yeah. Well, a great example of this is in Canada. And admittedly, I haven't studied the law that this applies to, but based on what I'm hearing is that it is now illegal to engage in any sort of act or behavior or recommendation that would be, what do they call it? Gender reassignment or gender correction. I can't remember.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So like, if someone says, hey, I want to go to, someone's going to quote me wrong and grab this snippet of whatever I'm about to say. Maybe I just promoted it. So, but I have identity crisis issues, right? And I might potentially think I'm a girl, woman, and I'm going to go get therapy for it. That therapy is illegal for me to do.
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
So let's say, Kip, you believe yourself to be a woman and you want to go to a therapist and hash this out. And so you come to me as a therapist, hypothetically.
Yeah.
If I say, hey, maybe Kip, you're not actually a woman.
Yeah.
You're a man, and maybe
this is
feminine, or maybe right.
Yeah, or this is psychological
that's illegal
from your past or whatever. That's illegal
for me as the therapist. So if a kid comes, and kids are confused by nature, we talk about gender ideology. Yeah. Kids don't know who they are. That's why they're children. Many adults don't even know who they are. Okay. So if a kid goes to a therapist and says, hey, I think I'm a girl. A little boy says, I think I'm a girl, or a little girl says, I think I'm a boy. You are no longer allowed by law to contest that.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's a problem, especially when it comes with kids, because now they're going to make life-altering medical decisions through hormone therapy, through drugs, potentially even bodily mutilation. If you're an adult and you want to do that, okay, make your decision. Yeah. I'm not going to base my life around you making that decision individually, but you're an adult. But you're going to do that to children.
Yeah,
man, that's a problem.
Yeah, and let's not just skirt over the idea that the evidence of suicide rate does not change, by the way, with when they alter their bodies or take hormone treatments or anything else. Everyone, because that's what usually everyone latches onto, right? It's there's a huge suicide rate and all this other stuff. And so it's all about, well, actually that rate does not change when they get hormone therapy. So then you might go, oh, that's interesting. So despite the fact that you have all those hormone therapy, it doesn't help them mentally. You have to start questioning, what's the point of this, right? Or what are we trying to accomplish? It's very frustrating.
It's Adam Carolla Adam talked about it yesterday. He calls it chick think. And that I was like, well, what do you mean by that? Because that almost that sounds insulting.
Warm and fuzzy thinking.
It's feelings-based thinking.
Yeah.
Right. It's all on
logic.
Oh, I don't want them to, right. And look, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't take into consideration
or have
people's
empathy
feelings about things. So I'm writing a chapter in the book right now on honesty, being honest, and why men need to be honest with themselves, with other people, and societally, like we're talking about now. And I think you ought to take into consideration the way people feel so that you can deliver a message, a truthful message, in a way that's going to actually move the needle. I'm not just because I'm telling people to be honest. And this is how a lot of men actually interpret this is
just be,
they think I'm saying being an asshole.
Yeah.
No, honesty and asshole, they're mutually exclusive. They're not inseparable.
Yeah, you can have some empathy. You can have some empathy and actually give
still
someone an honest answer. Yeah,
correct. And we should be doing that, because if we want to lead as men in our homes, in our businesses, in our communities, and you're just going to walk around and be a dickhead to everybody because you're telling the truth, Like nobody's going to follow you. You're not going to build any level of influence with other people by doing that. The way you are going to build it, and I know this with 100% certainty, not for everybody, but with 100% certainty, that the more you tell the truth and you do it in a tactful way, the more people will respect you. I get hundreds of messages every week from people who say something like this: Ryan, I don't agree with everything that you say, but even in disagreement, I can respect the fact that you are willing to share the way you see it.
Yeah.
That to me is a path that you're on the right track, because they don't have to agree. I don't expect everybody to agree with me, but the fact that they're still going to see something redeemable in it, even in disagreement, means that you're doing it right, which is, I'm going to share the truth.
Yeah.
My intention is not to be an asshole. My intention is actually to serve. And so I have to be cognizant of the way people hear it so that it will land and actually have a real impact.
Yeah. I like it. All right. Next question. Devin Butcher, how do you develop the mentality to stay in employment that may not have advanced opportunities? Do you leave and work somewhere else? Or is there a cutoff point where you stay and just accept your role?
Why would you stay? And like, think about, you're going to be alive. Let's just assume that he's 30 years old. So you're alive. You're more than, you're like 40% of the way through your life if you live to life expectancy. So, okay. So what you're saying is you want to do something that you know you can't progress in for the next 30 years. Why would you do that to yourself? Like that's horrible. That's a horrible, horrible way to live. Now there's a right way to figure this out. And you can actually find meaning in work that you don't love. Like, for example, let's say Order of Man went away today, tomorrow, whatever, and I couldn't do it any longer. But food needs to still be put on the table. The roof still needs to be over the head for my family. And so, I could go work at McDonald's. Like I could get a job at McDonald's today. This afternoon, I could go down to McDonald's and say, hey, I want to work, like, and they would put me to work like on the evening shift. Okay. Well, there's however many millions of job openings in the country right now. Now, do I want to work at McDonald's? Like, is that my ultimate life's purpose? No, of course not. But I would do that.
But if you had to,
of course I would do that, because the meaning is not McDonald's. The meaning is I'm being a father. I'm being a husband. I'm doing what needs to be done for my family. And there's meaning in that. Okay. So you can find meaning there, but no, you're not going to work the job that you hate or that you're comfortable with or whatever. I'm just telling you, you're not going to do that. I'm not going to allow you to do that. You need to find some value there while you're there. And there's a time, there's a season. Maybe you're in the season right now. Yeah. Okay. My wife, she's excited because here in the next couple of months, she's going to start growing her seedlings in our house. She starts seedlings in the house. And then a month or two later, when it's warm enough, she goes out into the garden, she plants them and they grow and they thrive. Okay. You're the seedling. All right. You've got, like, this is not ultimately where you're going to be, but right now you're planting the seed, you're watering, you're getting strong, you're learning new skills, you're getting your mind right, you're getting your finances in order, you're becoming sovereign, so that when the time comes, you're strong enough to go out somewhere else and build a business or start a new career and really thrive where you're ultimately supposed to be, in the sun and in the wind and in the nutrient dense soil. You see what I'm saying? Like that's
totally.
So, but there's a season, and right now you got to be in here. Yeah. But ultimately you're working towards something else.
Yeah. And I'm going to project on Devin just a little bit, right? Because I do think, Ryan, that far too many guys might have an employment opportunity right now, and there's like, there's no advancement opportunities present to me. And there probably is. So be careful not to be the victim. Like, well, my boss hasn't come to me and he hasn't laid out this career track for me, so there's no advancement opportunity. Like, you know what I mean? Own it, be self-directed, ensure that is not like, don't sit back and wait for someone else to give you the advancement opportunities. Ultimately what I'm saying, and come to that conclusion on your own. within your level of control. So just, and I'm not sure if that's the case with Devin, but I'm afraid that some guys have that mentality that they don't think there's an advancement opportunities because someone hasn't come out and laid it out in front of them.
That's a good point. If you like the work and you're worried there's not an advancement opportunity, you actually might be right. So you can create it.
Exactly. You can go to the boss and say, hey,
there might be
I
a
see
new
this
path.
gap. I see this opportunity. Let me take this and prove them that you're a reliable resource to do that. And you'll probably create an advancement opportunity on your own, which would even be better anyway, because it's your creation and, you know, it's probably what you want anyway. So
one phrase I really like is, I will either find a way or make one.
Yeah.
Like there is either a path there that you can take and you can run on, but if it's not there, you got to make it. And that's your job as a man, to make it. Maybe the path is not with your current employment. Maybe it is. Maybe it's with another company. But I'll tell you what, the better you do in the job you're at right now, the more marketable, employable you become to other organizations. Right. So when I was working as an employee for organizations in the past, I had plenty of job offers from other companies that were actively recruiting me because I was kicking ass where I was.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to be a dink, and I'm not saying Devin, you are, but if you're going to be a dink and you're going to like do the bare minimum and you're going to kind of suck as an employee, like those opportunities aren't going to build themselves.
Yeah. And even if someone gives you an opportunity, you're not going to take advantage of it if you're that kind of guy anyway.
Exactly. So no, you're not going to be satisfied. That's the answer. Find a way or make one.
Cool. All right, Chris, Manier, it's kind of a good question. Should a husband know the details of a wife's sexual abuse? How's that for a Monday?
Of her sexual abuse in the past?
Sexual child abuse. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think you should, because how can you help her navigate that if you don't know what the hell is going on?
Yeah. I mean, I think is it safe to say this, that if your wife was sexually abused as a child, that's going to show up in your marriage. And if it is, then there should probably be some conversation around her showing up in a different way or having emotional problems with being with you. So it would be probably
or physical problems. Like she might actually despise sex because of some past trauma. Yeah. You're the one that she's suffering. I'm not downplaying that, but you're also now going to have to suffer.
Yeah. Or you're going to interpret her mentality or how she's reacting to you as meaning something, a whole other story that you're going to come up with. And if you aren't having the conversation, then you're going to think your story is true and you guys are not even on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say, I know this is not probably going to be totally. It's not though. Like it's not it's a hard situation. Yes.
Yeah.
But the answer is simple. Yes, of course you need to know that. And if you aren't married, you're dating a woman that has past sexual trauma, that could potentially be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And look, I know that's probably not going to be popular with a lot of people, but
your job is to save her. Yeah.
And I say the same thing with women with children from previous marriages. I'm not saying you shouldn't. So hear me. I'm not saying you should not. I'm saying it's you who gets to make that decision.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who guilt men for not wanting to be involved with a woman with kids. Yeah. That could be a deal breaker. And it doesn't make you an asshole, by the way. It means that you have a track, you have a path, you have things that you want, things that you don't want. It doesn't make you an asshole. Now, if you decide to, that's great. And you should be fully the father that you can and should be to those kids. But you're not obligated. And you're not obligated to be with somebody who has sexual trauma that you will have to be impacted by. You have to make those decisions and don't be guilted into those decisions, because that's only going to create additional problems. But if, let's say you're already married, maybe you find out things after the fact, then it's your job to help her get some therapy. She needs some therapy to work through these things. And you need to know. That's, to me, as a husband, I need to know, because I need to help you navigate this. I'm the patriarch. I'm the head of the household.
Yeah. Yes. And it affects you. You should know.
If you can't tell me that, we're going to have some real problems outside of just whatever the isolated sexual abuse issues are. We're going to have some other problems in our marriage.
And by the way, this goes both ways, to be frank.
Of course.
I mean,
right, of
we're
course.
talking about the, child abuse on the wife's side. It goes the other way too, right? And let's be frank, this is anyone that thinks that doesn't affect you on how you show up intimately in a relationship, you're a fool. So you're not you need to talk about it. Yeah.
Agreed. Yep.
Gabriel Larson,
Can I say one other thing on that one?
Yeah, for sure.
If you have a wife, guys, who has experienced sexual abuse in the past, she may not open up totally to you immediately because it's threatening to her. Like, why would she want to actually talk about that? She wants to like bury it. So sometimes we as men have a tendency of becoming our own worst enemy, and we bottleneck progress because our ego gets in the way. So your ego might be saying, well, why can't she talk to me? Like through thick and
she
thin,
must not trust me.
She should be able to tell me everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, probably she should be able to, but the reality she doesn't. And that's because of her own perception, or maybe you're a dick when she shares these kind of things. Like there's reasons. Yeah. So what I would say is if she has dealt with it and she's having a hard time opening up to you, then having a third party, an objective third party that she can speak to clears the bottleneck. All right. And it opens the doors, and it opens her ability to share. And that means you need to get out of the way and have her get some therapy. Don't be threatened by that. Look at it as an opportunity for her to start the ball rolling. And if it's a good therapist, the therapist is going to encourage her to at some point begin to open up to you. So just get out of your own way on this one. That might be the little rock that needs to be pulled out so that things can open up. And it might be you who's in the way.
Yeah. All right. Gabriel Larson, you've mentioned in recent podcasts of how amazing you are. I'm just joking. Yeah, he didn't say that.
That's true. That's true.
We know that's a lie. Next question.
That's objectively true. It's not. It's truth with a capital T, and it's not subject to interpretation.
You know what, Gabriel, what do you want? What do you want? You want a free t-shirt? What's going on? You've mentioned in recent podcasts how successful of a networker you are. I am constantly in a situation where I meet people out and about. What are some tips to have people remember who you are while networking, sharing business cards, etc.? Do people still share business cards?
I don't know. I haven't for years. Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago for a business card. I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah.
I have a box in my desk.
I don't have a business card.
I think it's 100% full from when I ordered them.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you keep people remembering you, Mr. Mickler?
You serve them.
Yeah. Help you them, just right?
If I met you at a networking function, Kip, and you met 100 other people, and I was a guy, you told me something about, I don't know, like some sort of thing you needed in the business, in your business, just kind of casually. And then on Monday I followed up and I'm like, hey Kip, I don't know if you remember me. I met you Friday at the networking thing. You were saying you needed a solution for X, Y, and Z. Man, I was thinking about it this weekend. I actually know a guy who does exactly what you're looking for. And I'd love to make that connection. I think it'd make a ton of sense for you.
Yeah.
I just set myself apart from the 100 other people that you met. Exactly. Yeah. So the best way to get people to remember you is not like how fancy your business card is, not what suit you're wearing or how cool you look and all this kind of stuff. It's, did you help them win? But period. Bottom line, end of story.
Yeah.
The person that helps that person win will be remembered.
Here's the quote of the day. Here, you want people to remember you, remember them. There you go.
I like it.
Bam. Gabriel, next time you can say, Kip, you're so amazing.
And that would be subject to interpretation.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and did you ever know Dan Rawls? Because you were a BNI guy back in the day.
That's right.
Like he was over like BNI in Utah, I think, at one point. But I've known him through the years, and it's super funny. This guy straight up just gives me a call last week. Hey, want to touch base? You know, all the things he remembered about me. Oh, last time we talked, you and Asia were doing this and you're doing that. How that? I'm like, damn. Without a doubt, I know Dan has a CRM platform. He probably has like 5 pages of notes around.
Yeah, but Kip, so right? What?
Because that's his strategy. But but we shouldn't take away from that either. Like, he took his time to make notes about it.
Exactly.
And that's very meaningful. And just because I took a note to take my wife out or put it on my calendar to take my wife on date night doesn't mean that I didn't want to take her out. Right. And so we need to get past this, like, oh, it's not genuine, Ryan, if I have to write down notes or whatever. It's like, no, actually, if you care, you should be taking notes.
Yeah. I've heard people say that, like, I don't want to game it. It's not genuine.
Yeah.
Anything that's important, you write down. Anything.
Totally.
Money, fitness goals, dates of birth that are people that are important. Like, anything that's important to you, you write down. Why does it make it disingenuous if somebody says, oh, you know, I like doing these things, and here's a restaurant I really like, or here's an activity I really like. I mean, that's a quick way to do it. Like, if you came to me and you said, hey, you know, like, I'm a huge jazz fan, right? Like, I love going watch the basketball games with my family. And I was able to get, like, maybe I was a season ticket holder, or I was able to get some really cool seats because I won them, or like just, hey, Kip, I know you guys are big jazz fans. Like, I got these courtside seats and I can't use them. You're the first person I thought of. Come on now. It's so easy. It takes a little effort. It takes a little, like, putting aside your own objectives and just trying to serve other people.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Travis Farkas, how would you propose order of man concepts or even the podcast as someone who lacks any of the core principles of masculinity? So is this how do I introduce, or how do I tell someone about order of man in a elevator pitch? Is that kind of what he's looking for here?
I don't know if you should even do it as much as, like, let's say you're having a conversation with somebody that you care about, that maybe lacks some of these principles, but you care about them, maybe a family member, a friend or something. And like a certain conversation gets brought up, just go into the podcast and look at that topic and say, hey, Kip, you know, you and I were at lunch the other day and you were talking about this thing. I actually came across this really cool podcast and they talked about the very thing, interestingly enough, that we were talking about, and just send them a link.
Yeah.
That's it. Or if you're talking about books and they're wondering, hey, do you ever know any good books? Yeah. Sovereignty. Here, get them a copy, give it over to them, send it over to them. You know, it's pretty easy to, again, this just goes back to our last question. Think about what they need and think about what would serve them. And then we have plenty of material. Just take whatever material is there and just drop them a text, non-threatening, like, hey, we were talking about this. I thought you'd be interested. Check it out. And then a week later, you know, follow up with them. Hey, did you listen to that podcast? What'd you think? Not with any ulterior motive or anything like that, just because you genuinely care about them. And and it's a not, look, I can say things to your friends that you can't say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like point. I'm in a way better position.
Yeah, you're the third party. You're like, oh, exactly. That guy's a dick. You're like, oh yeah, he's kind of a dick.
I know he can be a dick. Yeah. I know he can be an asshole. Like, I really like 90% of his stuff. The other 10%.
He has good guests, at least. Yeah.
And I don't care. Throw me under the bus. Like, that's the point of having a third party, is I can say things because I don't have the same baggage and I'm not emotionally attached to the decisions you're making with the people in your life. I'm good with that. That's the power of this.
Yeah. And you alluded to this already, but we've talked about, you know, this has come up a lot in the IC over the years of, like, how do I introduce someone? And you pointed out already, is like, grab a book, give them a book and say, hey, when you're done reading this, you know, let me know and let's chat. Well, they may never read it. And then you're like, okay, you know, or they read it and they're like, yeah, what did you like about the book? And you could see some alignment and saying, okay, you know, maybe we're a little bit more on the same page than the fact that we just played basketball together in high school. Right. And let's now have deeper conversations now that we have a common ground.
And an even elevated way to do the book thing, it's a good idea, is to pull out the book. And it doesn't have to be my book. Like, maybe there's another book. I don't know. But you pull out a book and you tab the section, like, because if you give somebody a whole book, they're gonna be like, ugh. But if you give them a book and you're like, hey, I tabbed chapter 11 and I actually highlighted a few paragraphs that stood out to me based on our conversation, you should check it out. Yeah. They're just definitely going to do that.
Just make sure what you highlight isn't like shit that you think that they should get, like that they need to fix or change. Yeah. Don't do that number, but yeah. But
that comes back to highlighting things that you already talked about. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
if it's like, if it's something you didn't talk about, it might come across like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. All right. Peter Bond Kenobi, Mr. Kenobi.
Nice.
Getting ready to start a new business. How do you counter reoccurring doom and gloom feelings about the state of the world? Corrupt banking cartels, aggressive culture. It can be overwhelming to look beyond a few months into the future when so much seems uncertain. By the way, new IC member just signed up yesterday.
What's his first name?
Peter Kenobi.
Okay, Peter. What I would do is I would just succumb to all of that. I would just assume that the world's going to end, that I don't need to worry about finances, that I can eat whatever I want, that I can alienate as many people as I want, and basically just live in my parents' basement and, you know, play video games, let somebody else cover all my costs in life until the world ends.
Next question.
Look, what is the alternative? Okay, how do you counter it? You don't need to counter it. Like, are you telling me that you're only doing it because you think the world is going to continue and thrive and flourish? And if it doesn't, then, you know, all of it was for naught. Come on now. The alternative to what you're saying is just to throw up your hands and say, you can't do anything about it, and to live a life less than you're capable of. Bro, I might die tomorrow. I might be driving down the road, hit some ice, you know, wrap my truck around a telephone pole. Does that mean everything I've done up to this point is wasted? No, because my wife's still here. My kids are still here. The people who've listened to this podcast are still kicking. Like, and it's not wasted.
And you got to show up in a way that you can look past in that car and go, you know what? I gave it a good run.
Right. Hell yeah. I don't think you need... Yeah, things might be going south. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I think there's a degeneracy in society that I'm concerned with. And so I've made it my mission to deal with.
But and let's be frank, by you making it your mission to deal with, you're grasping the opportunity in the current state of things, right? Yes. So, I mean, Peter could look at the reoccurring bloom and gloom about the world and whatever. Dude, rise above it. What a great opportunity, right? Like I tell my teenage son, like Ian's like, dude, you have a growth mindset and you can critically think, you're going to kill it. So like, what a great chance and opportunity you have to rise up in an environment that is seemingly more pathetic in my mind.
And I'm trying not to beat up on him, you know, but it's a very immature thought process. You know, it's like, we only see what's in front of us naturally. You know, we only see what's in front of us. We don't play the long game. We try to attach a bunch of things to what we do, and we want to feel meaningful and important and special. And you know, I get all that. It's just immature. There's no better way to say it. Yeah. A mature line of thinking is, there's some things in society to be concerned with, and here's what I'm going to do about it. Here's how I'm going to address it. Here's how I'm going to live my life. Here's how I am going to be part of the solution. Here's how I am not going to add to those problems. Here's how I'm going to enlist other people to address some of these issues that we see. That is a more manly, mature way of looking at the world, rather than just saying, oh, doom and gloom, I guess everything's over. Yeah. No, that's not what we do.
Well, and I think part of this, you know, because like, you know, sometimes we'll get in our own heads, right? And we're like, man, you know, uncertainty or whatever. Well, here's some thoughts, Peter. One, get clear on what's in your circle of control and what's not. And if it's outside of your control, stop and focus on what's in your control. You made this point. The last part of the sentence is, beyond a few months in the future, so much seems uncertain. You know what what can be certain? How you show up. That can be certain. Mm-hmm. Your resolve can be certain. So focus on what's in your control, make that certain, right? And if it's outside your control, don't worry about it. Like, strategically plan it, right?
Sure, be aware of it.
Yeah. Be aware of it, but don't, like, who you show up in life can be certain. So focus on that.
Absolutely.
Good?
Yeah, no, it's great.
All right. John Dragu. Man, I swear. No, I've already cracked this joke.
You're getting
I swear you guys make up these names. I see. I like Dragu. no, whatever. You guys are changing your Facebook names, submitting questions just to like freaking mess with me. The good thing is, like, did you see the CNN Twitter feeds that like people were putting in there?
Oh yeah, see what was like CNN says to, put sugar in your gas tank or something.
No,
Was it
like
that?
CNN's doing news, and then they publish like Twitter feeds coming in that are being tagged to CNN, and there's like Mike Roch and like,
Oh, really? Oh, that's funny.
Super funny. I'm like,
Amanda
oh my
hug
God.
and kiss, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. The old Simpsons,
So funny.
Moe's Tavern.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so hilarious. I have to mention one more, because one of the questions you said earlier about us not being honest with people, right? And we're like pander to them. Did you see the meme where like this little kid, they're in the front yard of their house and he like throws a ball to a guy, right? And then the mom goes, that kid's going to be an athlete someday. And right when she's saying that, he throws the ball back, like pegs the kid in the face.
Him in the face. So good. That's what I'm saying. Awesome. That's exactly what I'm talking about. True. It's like, Mom, bless your heart. Okay. Chick think. That's the kid's not going to be an athlete. And he might, but as of right now, there's nothing about his countenance that shows me this kid's going to be an athlete. Totally. Maybe he should stick to engineering or something, because this ain't it.
Yeah. Well, and here's the deal. And here's the difference. People might hear what you just said and go, but Ryan, we should. No. What Ryan says right now, it's not looking good. Now, can little Timmy that can't catch a ball, and that kid he looked like he was 12. He should have been able to catch a ball at that age. But regardless, could he have rised up? Is he capable of becoming an athlete? Of course he is. But the current state of the path in which that kid is on, it's not looking good. So something's got to change.
Yeah, but there's another thing too about this. There's a much deeper issue. When you lie to people and you deceive them because you say you care about them. Actually, you don't. You care about yourself. That's another conversation. Like, you don't want to get into confrontation. You don't want you to feel bad. You don't care about them. You don't want yourself to feel bad about the way you made them feel.
Yeah.
But also, what are you limiting people to? Like, if you tell little Timmy that he's going to be a superstar, the next Tom Brady, actually, maybe he could have been a great engineer or a great artist or a great musician or a great something else. But you never had any real conversations with him. And so he was deluded into believing that this was his path. And he actually missed what he could have been really great at because you weren't able to be truthful.
Yeah.
And you don't need to crush his spirit. Like my oldest son, years ago, he was playing football and he's like, Dad, am I good at football? I'm like, you're decent. Like, you're not awesome. You're a decent, you're an average little player. And do you want to be great? He's like, I want to be better. I'm like, good. Then here's what we need to do.
Totally.
And we did it. And he was this chunky little roly-poly and he wasn't super athletic. And now he's athletic. The kid's athletic. Okay. He's probably not going to like play in the NFL, but if he wants to get behind powerlifting and that's a path. I asked him, I said, do you think you'll do this forever? He's like, oh yeah, I'll do this forever. Okay. Then you found a path partly because we're willing to tell you the truth. Yeah. He came to us years ago and he said, sorry, I know you want to say something here, kid.
No, it's okay. I'll keep interrupting slightly like this.
Yeah. He came to us years ago and he's like, Dad, I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm kind of fat. And I said, yeah, you're a little overweight. That's true. Like, what do most people say? They say, no, you're special. Oh, you're good. No, you're just happy the way you are.
It's your baby fat. No big deal.
And I said, no, yeah, you're right. You are a little overweight. You probably ought to think about doing something. And he's like, well, yeah, I should. I'm like, yeah. So what are you going to do? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't either. It's your problem. And he's like, well, I'm going to eat better. I'm like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
And he did. And then he's like, okay, now I'm going to start doing CrossFit. I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll drive you there. We'll take you. And he did. And then he's like, Dad, I want to do powerlifting. I want to play football. Okay, good. He got better at football. He's like, okay, Dad, I want to do power. I have a couple of friends. They're doing strength training with a coach. Can I do it? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because we support him in making good moves.
Yeah.
And so he started doing that a year and a half ago. The kid is completely transformed himself because we, at least to some degree, we're willing to be truthful and honest with him.
if you want to hear about this transformation and even see evidence of this, I actually do like, and I'm generally saying this, I'm not trying to plug things, but like following your Instagram at Ryan Mickler, but also the other podcast as well that you do with Brecken is really, really insightful.
Man, we have a great time doing it.
Yeah.
The other day, he asked for something. He's, Dad, can I have this thing? And I don't know what, I can't even remember what it was. And I said, yeah, you can have that thing if you can pass my guard in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we have mats in the front room. So he's like, all right. And so we went in the front room, like, all right, get my guard. You got 5 minutes, set the timer. And he didn't pass, but damn if he wasn't getting close.
And you were working. Yeah, he's working.
I was like, oh boy. 3 months ago, I was like, this is fun. And now I'm like, oh shit. Oh yeah, I gotta work now. And he's mean, he does mean, dirty tricks. And I'm like, I like this.
His dad.
Grinding it. He grinds his elbow into my thigh, like just grinds it as he's trying to, break that closed guard.
Yeah. And what your son doesn't know is Ryan just signed up for privates at the gym saying, hey, how do I maintain a guard better?
Totally. I'm telling you, the kid's 5. He's probably about 5'9" right now.
Yeah.
And I think he's 140-ish pounds. And like, it's crazy. Like he'll come out of the shower, he'll take his shirt off or something. And I'm like, I'm going to have my hands full, man. If this guy ever decides he wants to come at me or like, if he wants something, like I got work to do.
That's funny. I wanted to illustrate the opposite of Brecken a little bit, because I do think this happens. And I've seen this is where you have a young boy or young girl that's highly talented. And Ryan, I think it goes back to something you've said that I've latched onto over the years is like, what's the intent? What do you want them to learn? Right. And we've talked about this from the context of kids cleaning the room. Do you want the room clean or do you want them to learn the importance of having a clean room? Right. Or do you want them to learn discipline, or do you want them to learn that you work? Yeah. Or you work before you play, or like, what do you want them to learn? And sometimes we'll get kids that are highly talented and we'll go like, oh, you're so naturally talented. And we'll overly inflate their ego about their talent. And I would propose that we consider, what are we teaching them? And in that example, you're not teaching them hard work. You're not teaching them discipline. You're not teaching them any of those things. You're just making them feel good. Yeah. And then eventually those kids, what will happen is they'll get a little bit older. Kids will catch up from a skill set perspective and they'll go, I'm not the best anymore. What's wrong with me? Because we never taught them to grind it. We never taught them that growth is through discipline and reoccurring and to push themselves further than they are today. It was all about just being better than other people or being naturally talented. And sometimes that doesn't teach them anything. Right. So we got to be really mindful. What are we teaching our kids? Even though it might make them feel good, that's not probably what we need to be teaching them.
Well, we do, but we do the same thing to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. We're like, oh, I didn't get the contract. I didn't get the promotion. I didn't get the girl. I didn't achieve this goal that I wanted to. I didn't run the marathon in the time that I wanted to. And so I'm a loser, right? Because we've wrapped up our entire identity
around it. Yeah.
Well, in success, in ultimately achieving our objective. And don't misunderstand, we should be achieving our objectives. But with kids, it's better to reward the effort. Right. So
the result. Yep.
When I talk with my kids about what they're doing, and let's say one of them succeeds and hey, I'm proud of you. You did that thing. But you know what I'm more proud about? The 6 months that you've been playing that musical instrument, the 6 months of getting up early and working out, doing it when you didn't want to. That's what I'm more proud about. And that's actually what drove you to the result that you achieved.
Totally.
But we need to do that for ourselves too. And so sometimes it isn't a matter of saying we're good or we're bad. It's saying you can do this, right? Like, hey, you won today, not because you have more money than you did when you started the day, or not because you have a better relationship. You won because you got out of bed. Yeah. And you won because you did your work. You made your sales calls. You put in the effort.
Stay committed. Yep.
Yes. And the results, guys, that stuff will take care of itself. If you do that work and you reward yourself, and sometimes rewarding yourself is just feeling accomplished. I'm not saying you need to go out and buy yourself a steak dinner or anything or new clothes or whatever. Sometimes just reward yourself at the end of the day and look at your plan and say, man, you know what? I'm proud of myself today. I got a lot done.
Yeah.
You know, I got 10 things on this list or 100 things on this list, and I got, 70% of them done on Monday.
Yeah.
God, imagine what the rest of the week's going to go like.
Hell
and
yeah.
feel proud about what you accomplished.
Let me ask you this, Ryan, because I've played, I don't know, I've been playing with this idea that if I am ever upset, like if I'm in a bad mood, that it's ultimately always tied to me being out of integrity. Like I don't know if this is true. That's why I'm just throwing this out here, where if I show up and I honor my commitments through the entire day and I have a good day, will I always, in essence, feel good?
No.
You don't think so?
You'll feel better than if you don't do that.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
yeah,
but you're not always going to feel good.
You don't think that's enough to like?
Sometimes it is, but not exclusively, not 100%. Like I agree. I agree with the sentiment. I agree with what you're saying.
That it would get you there probably
more often,
way more than normal.
Sure.
Because I really think like when I'm usually stressed out and I'm kind of like, sometimes when I'm like kind of pissed off by the time I get home, it's usually because I didn't get shit done that I knew I would have gotten done. Like,
no,
and
I agree.
And it's a cascading effect. Like I didn't get to the gym this morning. And then it's like, damn it, I didn't get that done. And I still have this baggage of commitments that I've made that I didn't honor. And you know what I mean? And it really just bleeds into how I show up later in the day.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I'm just saying it's not gonna be 100%. There's other reasons. Like one reason might be you could get everything done that you wanted to get done today and be in total integrity for the day. And then you could pull up social media and look at what somebody else did, and it could just ruin your entire day because you perceive that they did more than you or something. It has nothing to do with integrity. Now we're talking about comparison trap. You're comparing yourself to what other people. I do that. That's the reason I bring it up is I can come in here and I kick ass today, and I could jump on Instagram and I can see, how many followers Jordan Peterson has. And I'm like, well, shit, I'm a loser. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Like, think about, this is the internal dialogue in my head. I'm talking to myself right now. It's like, you're a loser. What are you talking? You're not a loser. You recorded 3 podcasts today. You impacted thousands of people's lives. You wrestled with your kids. They're doing some construction in the house right now. You're able to afford that to make sure the house is the way you want it. Like, what are you talking about? You're not a loser. Yeah, but you're not like Joe Rogan though.
Yeah.
What? How come you're not like him? How come you're not like Peterson? How come you're not doing what this person's doing? And so there's a lot of other reasons beyond just integrity. Integrity will get you there for sure. Okay.
Frequently. There's plenty of other hooks. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we need to be aware of what they are. So like when you're feeling shitty, guys, like sit in it for a minute, like just wallow in the shit for a minute, not so you can feel bad about yourself, but so that you can figure out why.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel bad because I'm comparing myself to this person. Then cut that off.
Yeah.
Maybe unfollow some people or don't, attach your sense of worth so much to that. Like or you got out of bed, you didn't get the sleep you wanted to, or, maybe you did everything and then you just got a phone call and your grandma just passed away.
Yeah.
It's like, there's other things is all I'm saying.
For sure. Well, and that's why I really liked when you, that's one thing I really got from, is it John Gary Bishop or Gary John Bishop?
Gary John. Yeah.
Yeah. Gary John Bishop is, when he talks about expectations, right. And we hold on to them and don't deal in reality. And that's, and I think that's one of probably a handful of things that kind of get us off the path. And that's one of them for sure. Right. And I think comparison is in there. Right. So there's this expectation of like, no, I should be further along. Right. It shouldn't be this way. Grandma shouldn't die. My wife shouldn't be this way or whatever. And we almost just hold on to the expectation of what should or should not be instead of just saying, well, but that's not true. And what is true is grandma did die. So what am I going to do about it? Right. And almost finishing the thought to a conclusion of now what, and answering that question. Now what?
Well, and there's good things that come out of these scenarios too, like comparison, for example. I'm not saying you never should. Like there's actually healthy ways where you could look at it and say, okay, well, here's these people, they're performing better currently than I am right now. And so you can decide, like, are you going to be demotivated by that, or are you going to be inspired by it?
And inspired that's awesome.
Possible.
Now what for me, right? Like,
now what do I need
what
to
I'm going to do about it?
Right.
Yeah.
Or, grandma died, but she left me an inheritance. I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
Dick. No, grandma's a great mom. How do I honor her? So now what? I'm going to honor her.
That's better. Yes, that's
there
better.
You go. I helped you out there.
All right. What else we got?
Okay. Last question. Greg Horms. How do you steer your kids away from porn in this digital age?
You talk to them about it like that. So here's what
ahead of time.
Yeah, of course.
Before they have a chance to run into
preemptive strikes right here. You pick those targets and you preemptively strike against those targets. It would be like going to a pool party and, your kids don't really know how to swim, but you're going to bring them by the pool and hope they kind of figure it out. And you just toss them in and see how it works. Or
that they don't decide to jump in there with all the other kids. You're like, maybe they won't be inclined to jump in there.
Yeah. Yeah. they know they don't know how to swim. So they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Nah, what do? You teach them how to swim. You give them swimming lessons. You spend time in the pool with them. And I'm not saying spending time watching porn with your kids, but I am saying that you're going to talk to them about it. Kids, appropriately, here's some of the things that are out there. Here's some of the things you need to be aware of. Here's what you should do if you come across something. Here's what you shouldn't do if you come across something. And you give them some exposure to the topic, because you're not going to keep them from seeing porn. It's just not possible.
And their curiosity is probably going to be more dangerous to them than you.
Their curiosity, their buddies, like my oldest is 13. He's got hormones. He's thinking about girls. That stuff's all natural. It's all healthy, and a healthy behavior, a healthy thought process about it. But yeah, I think too many times we just run away from these conversations and think that, I don't want to. Same thing with firearms. I think there would be less firearm related injuries and deaths in the home if more parents introduce their children to firearms.
Totally.
But if you have a firearm in your house and you store it in this cool black vault with a dial on it that you have to break
with a sign that says "Try to get in me." Yeah.
I mean, come on now. Like you were a kid, you're an adult, how curious you are about some of this stuff. Totally. But instead you're like, hey, you're going to shoot a BB gun, and then you're going to earn a 22. And then you're going to shoot the little 410 that we have, the 410 shotgun. Then you're going to move to a 20. Then you're going to move to a 12. Okay. Now we're going to put you behind an AR, and we're going to get you familiar with this. And I'm not even saying you need to own a gun. I'm not saying your kids need to own a gun, but man, if you don't get them familiar with it, at least, I think you're really doing a disservice if you're not introducing these ideas. Like, they're going to be introduced, and your voice needs to be the loudest. So bring it up, talk about it. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward for everybody. So what? Do it.
Yeah. I love it. All right. One more. Okay. You good for one more?
Yeah, man.
All right. Isaac Gobble from the Foundry. Maybe this has been asked before, but to Ryan, I'm halfway through sovereignty, and I wonder when you decided to go to work on yourself, both in fitness and weight loss, and taking responsibility for your life and thought process. Did you have some guys that inspired you, or were you able to encourage you through the process, or were you doing it solo?
So I really started to get on the path of self-development more so than I ever had outside of high school. I was pretty dialed in high school, and then I kind of let things go. When my wife and I went through our separation.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, oh man, you need to, you're really dropping the ball. You need to get back in shape. You need to get your finances in check. You need to get your spiritual stuff lined out. And then as I did that, it produces those results. So I started talking about it, but we always fall back into patterns of complacency. And so I got really complacent again after my wife and I got together years later. And I realized, man, I'm fat. My kids asked to jump on the trampoline, my two oldest boys, one day. And I was like, sorry guys, I can't. And I literally couldn't. I was just exhausted from work. my work revolves around talking to people and sitting behind a desk. Like, why in the world should I be exhausted? But I was.
Yeah.
And then I just remember like their look of like deflation because their dad couldn't jump on the trampoline. And I made a vow. I'm like, I'm gonna get to the point where my kids get tired before I do. Like they get exhausted, not me. Like, no, let's keep going. They're like, Dad, we're tired. And I made that happen.
Yeah.
By joining a gym. I joined a CrossFit gym. That's primarily how I got my fitness stuff lined out. As I got into CrossFit, religious with that. I was training 5, maybe even 6 days a week. I don't do that as much not at all anymore because jiu-jitsu is kind of taken over that side of things. But yeah, I think I had a good reason for doing it. And then I've always been the kind of person who, once I set my sight on something, I'm pretty relentless. Like I don't, it takes a while sometimes for me to set my, like fixate on a target. I will admit that, you know, sometimes I'm a little flighty. I'm a little loose. I'm kind of like, yeah, we'll do that, but I'm not really committed to it. I admit that about myself. But once I lock in on a target, I'm in on that target and I do not deviate until I achieve that objective. So there's some strengths and weaknesses about me that I've been able to tap into.
Yeah. And so back to his question, I mean, it seems very solo then. I mean, once you identified like, hey, I need to do X. I mean, you weren't like constantly going to CrossFit because, I don't know, you're reading some book or you had guys pushing you. You were going because you decided.
I made the decision and I started going. Now, that said, I made some friendships at CrossFit. Taylor Jacobson,
which helped you to continually go.
Of course. Yeah. And Dave Howard is another friend of mine who, you know, we'd have competitions. Like we were both kind of not great shape when we started and we got into shape together. And some days he would win, he'd do it faster or more weight. And some days I would. Yeah. And that competition for me was invaluable. And I know it was for him too, because we've talked about it. Jiu-jitsu, very much the same way. I have good friends at jiu-jitsu. Some of the guys, you know, I just train with. Other guys I'll hang out with outside of training. But to go in and compete with another man, for me, man, that's huge. As I go in there, I compete. And I know tonight, for example, I'm going to train tonight. There's going to be some guys that best me and there's going to be some guys that don't. I don't want anybody to best me. I want to best everybody. Yeah. And that competition is healthy because it drives me towards productive action, which is to take care of my body, lift weights, eat correctly, train, study, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. So a couple of things as we wrap up. So, and we've talked about this, but for you guys interested, and I've gotten guys pinging me on the socials too about this. So Iron Council is currently closed to new enrollment.
Yes.
However, we'd recommend sign up for the newsletter and or follow Mr. Mickler on Instagram and Twitter to stay up to date for when we open that enrollment back up. To sign up for the newsletter, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council, and then to follow Mr. Mickler on the socials. That's Ryan, Michler, on both Instagram and Twitter.
Yep.
Anything else, sir, that you'd want to call out?
No, I think that's it. Again, just the only other thing I'd say, guys, we're on a big kick right now for reviews. So if you get any value from this, leave us a 5-star rating and review. There's thousands of people who are listening who haven't yet left a review. So go on right now before you put the phone away or whatever and you get on your day. Yep. Just real quick, pull it up, 5 stars. Ryan's awesome. Kip, yet to be determined. Whatever the review is, like throw it all in there. And that's important to us.
Cool. Awesome.
And Kip, you are awesome, by the way.
Yeah, whatever. Don't pander.
That is determined.
That
is determined. All right, you guys.
Hey, I'm not the one cracking jokes about poor grandma, so I just want to point that out.
True. That's true. All right, guys. We'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.